Welcome. I am Safwan Masri, Executive Vice President for Global Centers and Global Development at Columbia University. I am really delighted and excited to be with you for today's University Leadership Series with two prominent university leaders at Columbia, whom I will introduce in due course. But very quickly, we have with us Jim Valentini, who is the Dean of Columbia College, and Lisa Rosen-Metsch, who is Dean of the School of General Studies at Columbia. Welcome, Jim and Lisa. The University Leadership Series is a program developed by the Global Centers to connect our international students dispersed around the world with the university, and as part of our broad mission to advance Columbia's engagement with the world and to enhance global knowledge exchange. Today's conversation promises to be a stimulating and wide-ranging discussion about the present and future of undergraduate education. You know, it has now been 1 year since Columbia and many other universities transitioned to hybrid and online classes for all undergraduates. As the students in the audience are keenly aware, we had to innovate and to adapt how we teach and learn and how we interact with one another. Almost overnight last March, the university transitioned more than 9,000 courses to online platforms, and we had to reimagine the classroom and devise tools that have helped us pivot to learning that takes place outside of the school environment. The pandemic has also meant that we begin to understand the global nature of student populations in new ways. During the past year, Columbia established 9 pop-up centers throughout the world to complement our existing infrastructure of 9 global centers. We did this to support our international students who were suddenly and unexpectedly unable to be in the United States, who felt disconnected from the wider campus, and who needed help managing the many obstacles in learning during the pandemic, including those imposed by multiple time zones. The global centers are also incredibly proud to have partnered with the college and the Center for Undergraduate Global Engagement on a new initiative that they have led, the Global Columbia Collaboratory, a program that offers undergraduate students the opportunity to learn about pressing global challenges, to reflect and ideate, and to collaborate on impactful projects. The School of General Studies also created, in partnership with the Mailman School of Public Health and the School of Social Work, the Justice and Pandemic Preparedness Academy, offering undergraduate students the opportunity to learn firsthand about the intersection of pandemic preparedness and systemic racism. These are examples of innovations, some born of necessity, that have invited all of us to question how education is conducted through space and time, and how we build sustainable university-wide connections when so many don't have access to a centralized physical location. What was assembled in response to the immediate demands of an emergency is now understood as merely the first step in addressing the broader needs of an increasingly global student body within a world of shifting norms. While there is an understandable eagerness to get some semblance of our old lives back, our primary task as educators now is to move forward, incorporating what we have learned from the past year to improve undergraduate education for our students. The landscape of education has been reshaped. We have witnessed incredible shifts in methodology, and there have been technological advances that have fostered new models for teaching and participating, bringing with them new concepts of what a classroom might be and new tools for taking learning outside of the school environment. To help shed light on all of this and on what the future might look like, we have with us 2 extraordinary scholars, educators, and university leaders today. Jim Valentini has served as Dean of Columbia College and Vice President for Undergraduate Education since September 2011, and he has been a member of Columbia's faculty since 1990. Dean Valentini oversees the college curriculum, which includes the core, as well as the academic and programmatic services and policies that contribute to the undergraduate experience beyond the classroom. Before becoming dean, Jim served as chair of the chemistry department at Columbia. Lisa Rosen-Metsch is Dean of the School of General Studies. Previously, she was the chair and Stephen Smith Professor of Socio-Medical Sciences at the Mailman School of Public Health. She is an internationally recognized scholar in the prevention of HIV among populations with substance use disorders. Lisa is also an alumna of the School of General Studies, having graduated from the joint degree program with List College of the Jewish Theological Seminary. Once again, Jim and Lisa, welcome. And thank you for making yourselves available to our students and to our global audiences joining in from all corners of the world. So I'm going to start with a couple of questions, and I'm going to start with you, Lisa, if you don't mind. Many of our audience members, including some students, may not be familiar with the School of General Studies. And I know it has a unique history and came into existence after the Second World War and to meet the needs of a specific constituent in the population that's grown considerably since then. So could you tell us a little bit about what the School of General Studies is, a little bit about its history and whom it serves? Over to you, Lisa.
Sure, thank you. And Professor Masri, Safwan, I just want to first thank you and congratulate the Columbia Global Centers on the great work and really stepping up during this pandemic. I know many of our GS students throughout the world have taken advantage and participated in the pop-up centers and all the great programming. And then I just want to also say it's always an honor to be with Dean Tini here on the stage. And our school, as I'll speak in a moment, works very, very closely with Columbia College, including that Dean Valentini and I co-chair the Committee on Instruction of Faculty, whose role is to really make sure we're offering always the best and most dynamic undergraduate education at Columbia. So Columbia School of General Studies, it was founded, as you mentioned, in 1947, 74 years ago, to provide an academic home at Columbia University for soldiers returning from the Second World War. With its creation really based on the simple idea that talented, brilliant students should have access to a world-class education, regardless of when they decide to attend college. And really, through this simple idea that 74 years ago has brought us to Columbia School of General Studies today, which among our peers in the Ivy League and among selective higher universities and education, we really are the premier school for students who have a diverse path, who are non-traditional students. And President Lee Bollinger, in his remarks to our students on class day, distilled this to its purest form when he mentioned and kind of coined the genius of GS. The idea behind GS is to recognize amazing students and continue to innovate by bringing them to campus, they are full participants. Our students are in the same classes with Columbia College, engineering, Barnard students. They come and they bring their lived experience, their brilliance, their life, their lifetimes of just doing amazing things. And sometimes, we also provide a place for students who never really had the opportunity or dreams that they would be at Columbia University or a school like Columbia. And that's in part because of some of these, structural constraints, things like systemic racism and other issues that have, that did not get, it's an unequal system for sure. Just in terms of innovation, I'll just mention two things. We started as a school for veterans returning from the Second World War. And today we are extremely proud that we are the destination Ivy League school. We are really, there is no school that compares to the number of amazing student veterans. We have almost 500 student veterans studying at Columbia School of General Studies. universities, and this is about 4 times all of the other Ivy Leagues combined. And this is just a phenomenal community. And I think not only do our students certainly benefit, but all of our undergrads benefit from having our students in the classroom. And the second piece, just quickly, is we have international dual degree programs. And this was something built on the template of the program that I graduated with from the Jewish seminary, and my beloved predecessor, Peter On, who you both know very well and knew very well, created first with Sciences Po, the premier social science university in France, a international dual degree concept where students study for 2 years in another country, whether it be in France, or we have a program in Trinity College Dublin in Ireland, in Hong Kong, now in Israel. And students can immerse themselves in the culture, work with the finest academic faculty, and then they come here for 2 years to Columbia. So it's two degrees in 4 years with phenomenal, amazing faculty and other students at both universities. So I'll stop here. I could talk all day, and I don't want to take up more time, but anyone who's interested in learning more about our school, please contact us.
Yeah. No, thank you, Lisa. Thank you. And I've had many GS students in my classes, and I'm fascinated by the lived experiences, like you said, that they bring into the classroom. And we often refer to GS students or GS as providing a path for non-traditional students. Non-traditional meaning that they didn't go straight from straight from high school into college. So I want to turn to you, Jim, and not to say that GS admits non-traditional students, because even the college admits, every student is unique, right? And we don't have a thing, that's called traditional. Now, Columbia College is distinguished for a number of reasons, and I don't want to spill any beans, but I know that even this year, our admissions are just sort of off the charts in terms of what they indicate as far as the desire of people to come and enroll at Columbia. One of the things that distinguishes the Columbia College education is, of course, the core. Now, you've been dean for almost 10 years, right? You're coming up to your 10-year anniversary. And I know it's been a very, very dynamic, innovative period under your leadership. So tell us about the college and how you've reshaped it, and what students and their families should be thinking about undergraduate education, not only at Columbia, but more broadly.
Thank you, Safwan. Thank you for the introduction. Thank you for organizing this. Thank you to the Columbia Global Centers for this opportunity and for your support particularly throughout the past 14 months as we've navigated through the storm of this pandemic. And my sympathies to all of you in our audience who have suffered losses in your lives, whether they be in your family, your businesses, your education. But what I want to do today is actually look forward, as Safwan said in his introduction. Columbia College is a very old college. It was founded in 1754. We have a very long history. I say to students when they enter, welcome to the greatest college and the greatest university and the greatest city in the world. I say that because the value of Columbia College is that it is a great liberal arts college within a great university, within a city, a global city that offers so many opportunities, and is that city, that university that offers even more than the college itself offers. A hallmark of the college, of course, is the core curriculum, which has been a part of Columbia College for more than 100 years now. We just last year we celebrated the centennial of the core. It is our collective decision to provide to all students in the college a particular set of courses, a particular experience to prepare them to be citizens of the world. We have, while I've been dean, added to that in many ways. We have something called My Columbia College Journey, which is a guide to students guiding their success throughout the college and throughout life. It's organized not around a particular curriculum. It's not organized around a transcript at all. It's organized around helping students to recognize how they can develop what we call 13 core competencies, many of which are obvious in an academic setting: knowledge, research, quantitative literacy, but also include things, teamwork and collaboration, community engagement and inclusion, creativity and innovation, and today, importantly, global awareness. And that's our guide to students to help prepare them for a future that I say to families, students and families alike, that our Columbia College students, upon graduation, we can expect them to have another 6 or 7 decades of life, maybe even longer. I've said to parents that their children, some of their children will actually be alive in the 22nd century. None of us can predict what that world will be. The one thing I believe we can predict is that the success of our students will depend on their ability to interact successfully with anyone in the world at any time, and interact both personally and professionally. And so that's what we really will fundamentally aim for. The core is organized really around that in many ways, as is my Columbia College journey. That's an underpinning of it. And that's what we're preparing students for. We are also, we try to display creativity and innovation ourselves. That's how the Global Columbia Collaboratory developed from an idea I had last spring that was a response to a recognition that this academic year, it was unlikely that all of our students could be on campus, and therefore they would be dispersed throughout the world. And the Global Columbia Collaboratory was built on the idea of taking advantage of that dispersion of our students to put together guided teams of students in small numbers working on particular projects, and guided by faculty through seminars that informed students about global problems, and then staff and faculty who would help students in small groups pursue projects that would address those challenges. And that's a collaboration of the Center for Undergraduate Global Engagement, which is managed by Columbia College for the benefit of all undergraduates at Columbia, and the Columbia Global Centers and Columbia World Projects. And I think that has been quite successful. Columbia College benefits from being part of a great university. If you stand on the sundial, which you could call the center of our campus, and you look around, you can see 10 schools from that single location, and you can walk to every one of them within 5 minutes. There's no other university in the world where that's possible. And the interaction of our students with all of those schools is an important aspect of their education. We have so many distinguished, 16 schools at Columbia, many distinguished graduate and professional schools, but also 4 undergraduate schools: General Studies, School of Engineering and Applied Science, Barnard College, and Columbia College, each of which admits students in a slightly different way, each of which has a slightly different student body. This produces a very large undergraduate population that is arguably the most diverse, the most interesting anywhere in the Ivy League, perhaps anywhere in the world. And we're very happy about the experience that's provided to all of our students by that. But in addition, we have distinguished graduate and professional schools in law, business, social work, journalism, medicine, nursing, all kinds of fields that are represented at Columbia. And that's an important part of the experience here. Safwan mentioned admissions. Yes, we had a remarkable year this year. We had more than 48,000 applicants for Columbia College. We have an entering class of just over 1,100. We are very happy to assemble a graduating class, entering class from that. It's a very challenging job, but we have an admissions office that does a very good job at that. We say that we admit those students who we feel are best able to profit from and contribute to the special experience of being at Columbia. And we measure our success by whether the students we admit actually do profit from and contribute to that. And I think so far we've been pretty happy about that. The world has, I think, recognized that as well. US News and World Report in its annual ranking of colleges and universities ranks Columbia, the undergraduate experience at Columbia College in engineering, number 3 among national universities. I think that's a really appropriate recognition of the success we have had in developing an undergraduate experience at Columbia.
That's great. Thank you. Thank you, Jim. So let's talk about the disruption that the pandemic has caused to this experience, right? I mean, on the one hand, I think we should feel incredibly good about how we pivoted, how we supported students, how our faculty rose to the occasion, how students rose to the occasion, despite many, many challenges. But we often say, and I know that you share my view that students, I mean, I always tell students that you are at a place like Columbia, not to necessarily acquire, especially as an undergraduate, the skills that will serve you in your first job, or maybe in your first career, or even beyond. You're there to broaden your horizons. You're there to cultivate your intellectual curiosity. You're there to learn how to continue to learn for the rest of your life, right? And then you can pursue graduate education. Jim, you listed some of the world's best graduate schools that are at Columbia. But part of that broadening of one's horizons and cultivating one's intellectual curiosity is everything that you just mentioned, Jim, in terms of the interactions that take place on campus, right? I mean, I sometimes say to students as they enter, you're going to learn more outside of the classroom than inside the classroom. And inside the classroom, you're going to learn more from one another than you will learn from me. You know, what have we lost as a result of the disruption this past year? How have we adapted? What lessons have we learned? And how will that impact the kind of experience that we are preparing for our students once they are back on campus? And I say back on campus in quotes because some students started their education almost a year ago, and they finished their first year without having stepped foot on campus. So maybe we can talk about all of this. Lisa, I'll turn to you first, if you don't mind.
Sure. And these are conversations that Jim and I have with the faculty on our committee on instruction, and we've been having all year. So clearly, as Jim had mentioned, you know, in terms of our students not being able to be on our magnificent campus, not to be physically, you know, in the classroom with the faculty, with their fellow students, and not being able to take advantage of all that New York City has to offer, whether it be, you know, internships during the year, or, you know, as for our students who are preparing for graduation. And, you know, we certainly have seen, you know, more limited job opportunities and all of that. I think some of the things that really have been very challenging, we've in some cases in asynchronous learning, you know, our students, when they were able to take advantage of that, are, you know, physically exhausted. We know we're talking to students around the world and had students taking classes at 2 in the morning, at 4 in the morning. And I think the efforts of our faculty have been tremendous. And one of the things that I think we take away from this is new forms of pedagogy and innovation in the classroom, and that we've been able to experiment and see new ways to connect. And I do think as we bring students back to campus, and, you know, as President Bollinger has said, you know, we expect to be fully back on campus in the fall, you know, God willing that the public health holds up and the vaccine campaign is successful, we will, I think, be able to see still ways of faculty bringing in new innovations. I think, you know, nobody wants to ever have a 2-hour, 3-hour just lecture, and the different ways that you might be able to use technology in very innovative ways. I will say on a positive side for us at Columbia School of General Studies is it has increased access in some cases for students to start their studies or advance their studies. So I can think of one student we had who was a ballet dancer in Germany, and she kept deferring her admission, and because we were online at this time, she was able to start. And we have, you know, countless other stories like that. And I think we're trying to learn, I know at our school, at GS, how we can continue to make things flexible and open for our students. One thing we did is we started, let students start for the first time in the summer their studies, and they were able to get a quick run on starting and doing requirements. And one thing we are considering is maybe we would continue to have virtual offerings sometimes in the summer for students who may be traveling around the world or in another country and want to go home to to be with their families and can continue to take courses. But I think there's been so many lessons learned. I think we, again, very much look forward to bringing everybody back, but we will continue to build on the success that we've had.
Thank you, Lisa. So Jim, maybe you can address the same question in terms of the impact of the pandemic and going forward, and think beyond Columbia. I mean, obviously the experience of Columbia and its students is largely, but not wholly, representative. So, what do you think things look like and might look like next year for our students, but others as well?
Yes, thank you, Safwan. Well, as Lisa said, our expectation is that we will return to being an in-person instruction in residence, university and college. We expect, we are inviting all students back into residence. Columbia College offers residence to all of the students who are enrolled in Columbia College. We require on-campus residence for first-year students, and we expect our classes to be in-person instruction as well in the fall, barring some unfortunate unanticipated problems that Lisa has already referred to. We're all looking forward to that. I think all of us are desperate to be back together. I certainly am. Last 14 months, I've spent very little time on campus, and when I am on campus, there are very few people to interact with. We've missed a lot of things, but as the people in the college know, whenever we encounter anything that is a challenge, I say, well, there's an opportunity there. And so we've looked for opportunities in this. The Columbia Global Collaboratory was one of them, but also one of the 13 core competencies is called wellness and resilience. And this year we have emphasized that with students, learning about resilience in particular. What do we do in a situation like this? It's unfortunate, there's loss everywhere. It's challenged us in so many ways. What can we learn from that? Particularly, what can students learn from this that will be lessons they can take throughout their lives and help them deal with and encounter many different kinds of challenges that they will experience, and there will be many challenges throughout their adult lives. But we've missed a lot. What we've missed, Safwan, you really referred to it. The values and the value of the experience that happens outside the classroom. Students may spend 15 hours a week in a classroom. They may be spending 15 hours a week in a Zoom classroom now, but you spend many, many more hours actually on campus, when we're on campus, interacting with faculty, interacting with one another. And there's a lot of learning that goes on there. I can reference the loss to my own individual experience. When I'm on campus, I can walk into Learner Hall, which is a student center, and just stop and chat with students, or walk up the steps of Low Library, which in good weather our students call Low Beach. They're sitting out there in the sunshine, or just before a class or in the lobby of Hamilton Hall. You have a chance before classes, after classes, to interact with one another. Before meetings and after meetings, you interact with one another. We're all suffering from Zoom fatigue. My days are probably like student days. I'm in Zoom meetings, which is pretty much the same as being in a Zoom classroom, many, many hours every day, and it is tedious and wearing. And what you don't get is the value of the experience that you have by being able to chat with people before and after a class, before and after a meeting. You just miss so many things because our interactions are all scheduled and limited. the serendipitous aspect of our interaction is completely gone. And that is so important to our experience. That is why we're a 100% residential college. It is because we feel that those interactions are really, really significant. At the same time, as both you and Lisa said, we've learned things in this pandemic. We've learned to do things that we know will help us learn to do things better in the future. What's important about the future is recognizing what we should do differently in the future that enhances the in-person nature of our experience, doesn't replace the in-person nature of our experience. And those enhancements are something that clearly we're interested in focusing on. Both I and my wife, Professor Valentini, who's Professor of Italian Studies at Columbia, have seen things in our Zoom experience that we know are quite valuable, and we'd like to continue to capture. But both of us are desperate to be back on campus with students and colleagues, and to have the experience that we have had in the past.
Thank you, Jim. So let's talk about sort of beyond being back on campus, right? I mean, there were forces that were at play before the pandemic struck that have caused us to, any of us who are involved in higher education, but particularly the two of you in undergraduate education, forces that have caused us to rethink how education should be perhaps conceived and delivered. Technological shifts, the globalism and all the forces of globalization. How has the pandemic, if at all, affected how we adapt and adopt in the longer term? We hear so much about the pandemic has accelerated a shift to online, right? Are some of the shifts that have taken place during the past 14 months, do you expect them to be permanent shifts? I mean, to what extent will the landscape of higher education change as a result of some of those shifts? Like I said, many of them predated the pandemic, but may have been accelerated by the pandemic. Jimmy, you want to start?
Sure. So, and you're absolutely right. This predates the pandemic. There have been schools that have offered full 4-year undergraduate education online, entirely online. I remember many years ago, early in the period, and I was dean, in which at a meeting, the provost said, someday soon, a university will offer a full 4-year education, undergraduate education online, and then we'll be in trouble. That has happened. That happened actually not long after that. And when he made that remark, I just blurted out in kind of a thoughtful but not entirely conscious way. I said, well, who will write those students' letters of recommendation? And what that really means is, what do you get in a purely online education? The absence of the interpersonal interactions that lead to an understanding of one another, that lead to growth as a person, that lead to our ability to interact successfully with one another, can be missing. I'm not denigrating any institution that offers a 4-year education entirely online, but I don't think we're ever going to do that. I hope we're not going to do that, because I think the value of what we offer is really in the nature of having a residential campus and the access to all the schools, as I described earlier, and the access to faculty and the access to students. Once a student asked me about learning chemistry online, and I said, well, you don't actually need me. I'm a chemistry professor. You don't need me to learn chemistry. You could learn chemistry. You could learn chemistry without a classroom, because you can find everything you need to know online. I said, you can learn chemistry without me, but you can't learn to be a chemist without me. And that's a different thing. What it means to be a person who does certain kinds of things is different from acquiring technical knowledge that leads to being that person. And I think the focus we have is on that. Nonetheless, We look at what's happened here. Looking back, when we started a development campaign in the college 5 years ago, it's called Core to Commencement. It is an effort to support students and faculty throughout all parts of the undergraduate experience. One of the things I made sure we put in it, I said, we have to have an element in it called expanding the classroom in space and time. When I said that 5 years ago, people gave me a quizzical look. And what did that mean? I don't get many quizzical looks anymore because we've already had an experience. And Safwan's already mentioned that earlier, expanding the classroom in space and time. It's not replacing the classroom, it's expanding it. And what are the kinds of things that we can do to enhance the education we deliver, not replace it, and make it more effective, but also for Columbia College, which has 53,000 living alumni, and to whom I have said we would like to deliver a lifetime of academic and intellectual engagement, these alumni cannot be on campus. They live all over the world. The things we have learned to do in the last 14 months are things that will help us understand how we can deliver that educational, intellectual, academic experience to alumni throughout their lives, because there is no opportunity to have them in residence all the time. So we're looking for ways to enhance what we offer, not to replace it. The cautionary thing is to avoid what one might call the lure of easy money. There's a sense that we can deliver some things much more cheaply through online education. I think we have to be really careful about that. Expanding our impact, expanding the experience is a really good thing, but not using it as a way to try to deliver in an ineffective way, a substitute for what we have been doing just because it's less expensive to do so.
Right. The campus experience continues to be incredibly important. And I think for universities like Columbia, online and technology enhances and supplements some of what we do on campus. But we are seeing shifts among second and third tier smaller colleges, which have had to scale up quite quickly, and those who have done so by going online are likely to to satisfy perhaps demand in a corner of the education market. There are so many questions that are coming from the audience. I want to try to get to as many of them as possible. We also have 2 on-camera students who will pose questions. But before I turn to them, Lisa, maybe you can try to address this in terms of the impact of these shifts on the future, but perhaps because you have a slightly older set of students, if you can maybe even focus on how shifts in the workplace might impact sort of what students are thinking about, and how we as educators are trying to adapt and try to ensure that students are resilient in the face of changes that they're likely to see in the workplace, if you'd like.
Yeah, sure. I think when you mentioned that students are resilient, that's one thing in terms of adapting and adopting. We've seen, and particularly in our school, where students, have often had this nonlinear path to come to Columbia. We've seen them, do very well during this year, although not easy. Just in terms of shifts in the workplace, and when I was listening to Jim speak, I was really thinking about one thing that has been a big issue in undergraduate education is access. And during this time of the pandemic, when we were virtual, for our students particularly, who may have been, working full-time jobs, they always had that access to be able to be a little bit more flexible during this piece, meeting with their advisor at, different times of the day. And that piece, I think, has been, really, really important and a lesson learned. And for us, flexibility, and particularly for meeting people. Most of our students are full-time, but we have about 25% who are working full-time in jobs, and they're able to, get their undergraduate degrees. For some cases, students that come to our school are also coming for a second undergraduate degree. And it might be one of the most popular majors, for example, is computer science, which is a department in the School of Engineering. And many of our students who might have had a humanities major at one point, or are coming back to Columbia for a second bachelor's degree, and to be meeting changes in the workforce as well.
Great, thank you, Lisa. So I'm going to bring in a couple of students. First, we have with us Sean Lee, who is a student at the college, who's in Hong Kong, has been in Hong Kong, I think, since the beginning of the pandemic. Hi, Sean, how are you? And I think, Sean, you have a question for Dean Tini, so please go ahead.
Well, thank you for being here. My question is, I wanted to ask about the future of the core and how it can rise to the challenges of our times, climate change, racial injustice.
Yeah, thank you, Sean. So we say that the core prepares students for life of citizenship by engaging them with the way in which people throughout history have engaged with the joys and challenges of human existence. In the past year, it's mostly been challenges and not so many joys. And I think there's a timelessness about the core. There's a timelessness of the issues about human existence, human nature, but at the same time, we'd like it to be contemporary. I say the core is always the same and always changing. If we look at, for example, at contemporary civilization, which deals with issues of justice, how does it look at how concepts of justice must evolve because the world is changing? As we have a world in which the action of a particular individual one place or collection of individuals one place can affect people far away in influence on the climate, our concept of justice and our concept of responsibility and our concept of citizenship and our concept of response have to change. And this is done, this happens in the core in two ways, both through a periodic assessment of the curriculum by the faculty who teach it, but much more significantly by what actually happens in the classroom, in which we choose instructors and we prepare instructors and we advise instructors, and instructors talk to one another in a way to connect what we're doing in the core with the challenges of the moment. It's all of it we like to feel is contemporary, but then there's another step beyond that. We try to build on the core. We have now for the past 4 years had something called the Eric H. Holder Jr. Initiative for Civil and Political Rights. This was built out of a conversation I had with Eric Holder. He's a Columbia College and Columbia Law School alum, former Attorney General of the United States. Eric and I have been friends for quite a while. We had a conversation in the Dean's office in the summer of 2015. Eric said contemporary civilization was the single most important course he took at Columbia, and he described how it was important in his life. And he wanted to provide an opportunity for students to build on the core in a more active engagement, building on the things you learn in the core to take the lessons of the core outside the classroom. And so that's an important part of it. But the core is really going to be a foundation here about how do we address issues of justice, citizenship, responsibility, rights, all of those things. And then how do our concepts of them evolve as the world is changing? So it's not so much it's building on the past, not relying on the past, but building on the past. And a lot of that response is actually done through the instructors who are teaching it. At the same time, we want the core to be self-examining, continually self-examining. So this past year, I appointed a committee. It was called the Committee for the Second Century of the Core. It's alumni and students who were largely students and alumni of color who were discussing. I chartered them to discuss their experience in the core and how they felt the core should actually evolve, because I posited that the core, which the college requires of all students, since it's required of all students, the college has an obligation to make sure it's successful for all students. And so we wanted to have a group looking specifically at the success of the core for students of color. We will continue this with other kinds of second century of the core committees to look at the effectiveness of the core. And that will be students and alumni and faculty answering more fully the question you have posed.
Great. Thank you, Jim, and thank you, Sean. Next, we have Sumar Frejat. Sumar is in the School of General Studies. Hi, Sumar. Please proceed with your questions. Nice to see you.
Dr. Masri, how are you doing? Thank you for this great event, and it's great to see you and to see Dean Rosen-Metsch, and it's great to meet Dean Valentini virtually. Hope to see all of you soon on campus. Dean Rosen-Metsch, my question to you is, when GS students jumpstart prepares for the transition into academic life, how is the School of General Study preparing students to transition into a career, especially during these unprecedented times?
Thank you, Sumar, and thank you for all that you've contributed to our school in so many ways. We are so proud that you are a GSer. So I think it's an excellent question. Particularly, we have, a Center for Career Education. Actually, Dean Valentini it oversees that, and it serves all of our undergraduate schools. But in this particular time, one thing that we've done at GS is really enhance our alumni engagement. We've had almost every week or several times a month an alumni event that really focused on one, providing advice and counsel, but also looking to make much deeper connections with our students in helping to get jobs. I mean, it's clear there was a recent college survey, I think it was published in Forbes magazine, that showed that only 3 in 10 college students, this is nationally, now feel confident about getting their desired job once they graduate. 23% only believe they will get their desired salary after graduation. So we have, I know our faculty, for us, all of our team at GS have been, trying during this time to provide extra references, recommendation letters, whatever we can to help students. But I must say, your question, Jumpstart, is something when our students who may have not been in school for a while or who want that extra, fast run into being a student at Columbia, we do that before orientation. And I think, Sumar, I'm going to take your idea and ask you possibly to think about something that we may do as people transition into the workforce as well. We do have that for our veteran students. Our Center for Veteran Transition and Integration very much works in that way. But thank you for your question. And I don't know, Dean Tini, if you want to mention anything about the career center during these times.
So, okay, thank you, Lisa. So, yeah, so the Career Center is operating entirely virtually right now, and interviews are entirely virtually. We've had remarkable success, I think, in terms of our undergraduate students in securing places in careers, despite this Forbes survey, which Lisa mentioned. Our students have continued to be able to secure opportunities that they find promising. Of course, I also caution students that the Center for Career Education is not a career placement agency. Its name is the Center for Career Education. It helps you, it prepares you for a career seeking and understanding throughout your life. It's also one, I have to say, our Center for Career Education supports not only students, but alumni throughout their lives. So people are eligible to use it throughout their lives. We've learned a lot there about virtual interactions, virtual interviews that we're going to take into the next year, and employers are going to take into the next year as well. Yeah.
Great, thank you, and thank you, Sumar. So we have so many questions from the audience. I can tell that some of them are from parents, others are from prospective parents. We'll try to address as many of them as possible, and I'll try to lump a few together. So there are questions related to, some of the things we've talked about, but about being back in the fall. So Andrew talks about his daughter, who's a rising junior, courses that she tries to register for, and they continue to stay online. Sonia is asking, are we committed to holding all classes in person? And I know that the truth is somewhere in between. There are also questions about online education becoming a necessity. Will Columbia be imagining doing something like this continually in the future? And I think you sort of addressed that, Jim, by talking about the supportive role of technology. Mariam asks, how close to normal will campus look like in terms of undergraduate student life, athletics, alumni engagement? So both on the academic and the non-academic. But then let me also just say there are some specific questions which I know we cannot answer now. So Alvaro Lopez, you're asking about your son and vaccination. Where the university has not yet said what vaccinations will be accepted, but it is making it possible for any returning student who has not been vaccinated to be vaccinated on campus. And we have special webinars that deal with these very practical questions about returning to campus. But to you, Jim and Lisa, let's deal with sort of how life will look like on campus and the academics and what's online and what's in person and so on. So, Jim, you want to start?
So, first of all, we're inviting all students back to be in residence. And that's an offer that extends to everyone. There will be a mandate. The university has already expressed this, that all students will be required to be vaccinated, with a few exceptions, which I won't go into here. I believe a decision has been made about what vaccines are accepted, though since I'm not certain that has actually been announced, I will not address that right now. Lisa may know more.
Yeah, I can add something on that.
Yeah, Lisa will add to that. With all students vaccinated and an anticipation that all faculty and staff will be vaccinated as well, we believe we will have a campus in which people can interact in the way we have interacted in the past. The directory of classes may actually describe a modality of instruction that may be incorrect. There was some question about how the courses were actually put in that way. Every class is going to be offered in person. Some classes may have, in addition, an online component for students who, this is throughout the university, for students who for one reason or another are enrolled but are unable to actually return to campus. This will be, and we anticipate this will be a small number of students in the college, a very small number of students, but in-person instruction will be the natural way we're doing things, and it will be available to everyone in every class as we understand it. Now, the one limitation we have is we're not sure about the CDC guidelines for classroom occupancy, which currently continue to have some restrictions. We're working hard with the university, not we, Lisa and I, are working hard with the CDC to resolve that so that we can utilize our classrooms fully starting in the fall.
Great.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And I would just add, again, we are hoping to return to as normal operations as possible. Just in terms of the vaccines, Columbia has said that the World Health Organization approved vaccines will be accepted. And on the Columbia Health's immunization page, you can see, for anybody interested in seeing more information, as Safwan says, I think on Monday we had seminars, and we're always having webinars to give that information. But the process, for students regarding medical and religious exemptions are all listed on that page. But again, the hope is we've already announced that we will be mandating the vaccine. We're very much hoping for staff and faculty that most of our campus will be vaccinated, and we will see a a return to, again, classes, in-person classes fully, and as well as activities. And for students, as Jim said at the beginning, the reason you come to Columbia for the great university, college, campus, New York City, all of that will be back.
Great. And I think, you've addressed also some of the other questions that I didn't ask. High flex, obviously, Ellen, I think we will have high flex because some students will not be there. There are, questions about more intimate, smaller classes. I think what everybody has been hearing from us is that things will not go back to normal. We will define what the new normal is, right? We don't want to go back to how things were writ large, before the pandemic. And so all of these things, and I think faculty and administrators have learned a lot during this past year that will help us innovate going forward. One set of questions that's really, really important, I think, has to do with what students are returning to or coming into in terms of a cultural zeitgeist, if you will, or a political zeitgeist that we are living with around the world and in the US in particular. And I know that we are very, very focused on trying to ensure inclusion and tolerance and embracing of difference on campus. But we do know that there are many Chinese students, Asian American students who are concerned about what we're seeing in America today or over the past few months, of course, with Black Lives Matter. Here's a question also from the parent of 2 Columbia undergraduates who asks if there will be programs that support white males at the same level that there are programs supporting many other group identities. So maybe Lisa, you'd like to, I know you've been dealing with a lot of issues around this at the school, and then we'll hear from Jim about the same question.
Yeah, let me start just by first saying too, just at this moment, that there are so many things going on all around the world that are of great concern, and our thoughts and at Columbia, this is why we have global centers, to be able to take on some of our world's most hitting issues. I do want to say a moment to some of our students, particularly who are in our dual degree program in Tel Aviv and in Gaza. There's a lot going on, so we're all very concerned and sending our best to people in that part of the world today. But I think I know for us at GS, we had a year focusing on our diversity, equity, inclusion, and that's really for all students. We want to always make sure that one of the beauties of coming to a place like Columbia is the diversity of our students, of our faculty, of just being able to be in the classroom, and that's in the international classroom. So I think we've had, as we mentioned, the Justice and Pandemics Preparedness Academy was an opportunity for, as an example, where we were looking at the intersection between the pandemic and structural racism, where we saw early on in the pandemic a lot of inequities and inequalities, and we look to really focus our efforts. And I as a dean at Columbia, as a professor, I'm very proud of a lot of the initiatives that our students themselves take on to address these issues.
Jim?
Thank you. So I'm gonna follow up on Lisa. We do have efforts in the college, general studies throughout the university that promote the best of interactions among people and recognizing the challenges that students with particular identities may face, both on campus and in the world. At the same time, emphasizing that to our students, I emphasize to our students all the time, and so we do throughout the college, that when you're engaged with a particular individual, you shouldn't make any particular assumptions about them. You should engage with them with what I call beginner's mind. This is based on a Zen Buddhist concept Shoshin, that's in the beginner's mind, there are many possibilities. In the expert mind, there are few. I encourage students to use that interacting with one another and not make a judgment about someone based on how that person looks, how they speak, where they're from, because that's a limited set of information, but rather to try to engage in a conversation with someone. Don't make assumptions about people. Any individual is a unique, any person is a unique individual with a unique experience, and understanding the unique experiences of one another is really one of the values of being in residence in a community. And I say to students, this isn't really a selfless civic virtue. This is a selfish virtue, because if you interact with people with assumptions, you're losing the opportunity to engage with someone who may become a lifelong friend, may become a business partner, may become someone who advises you, maybe someone in the future whom you rely on in some way. And so recognizing identities, but when emphasizing that when an individual student encounters another individual student, this is two unique individuals talking to one another, and they should approach one another with beginner's mind.
Yeah, absolutely. Very, very, very wise words. So I'm going to address a couple of questions very quickly and then turn it back to you for closing remarks. This has just been so incredibly instructive and exciting and interesting, and really appreciate all the great questions that have come our way. I mean, there are questions related to what we will do once students arrive back on campus. Maggie is asking about meets and greets, international orientations. Absolutely. We're focused. We've been working in teams across the university, thinking about how do we prepare students for return to campus over the summer through platforms such as this one, and then what we do once they're back on campus, not only the first week, but throughout the semester and throughout the year. To try to make up for what has been lost, and to try to deal with a lot of the issues that are on their minds. We're also, question from Charles about connections with cultural and other opportunities in New York. We've done that even during this year, and this is something that we will be very, very focused on going forward when students come back. The question that comes from Sundar about students in India, we are particularly concerned about students' ability to come back to campus from countries such as India, Brazil, China, although in China now, because the State Department has announced and the consular offices being open, and we know of students who are getting appointments, but we will continue, of course, to monitor all of these situations and do everything in our power to support you before you come to campus, and certainly once you come to campus. And Jim, I know I saw you nodding, so I know you want to add to this. So I'm going to give you a chance to do that and maybe give any closing remarks you would like to give.
Sure. Thank you, Safwan. Yes, we recognize a series of issues, challenges we have to address in a return to campus life. First year students had a virtual new student orientation last year. We want to have an orientation for them. We call it a reorientation for first years who are now rising sophomores. We expect to have an in-person new student orientation this year. These are things that will happen at the beginning of the fall semester, but we'll also have things that go throughout the fall semester, basically to recenter ourselves on being together, remind ourselves about what it means to be on site. But we also recognize that there are students throughout the world who may have particular situations that will make this particularly difficult, and we're trying to engage with those students individually. Yeah.
Great. Thank you. Thank you, Jim. Lisa?
Yeah, I would really say ditto. I mean, during the last week or two in April, when we were moving towards commencement and class day, we were I was thrilled to be able to see so many students who came for our grad walk and, taking pictures and on stage. And we had a balloon tunnel. And I think, in seeing our students, just realized how much, we've missed in this past year. And I think we are hoping, and we will have, an in-person orientation. And if you hear any hesitancy in any of us, it's because, we have to follow New York State guidelines, we have to follow CDC guidelines. And I think every day, it's getting better in hearing about percent of people who are vaccinated. Just this week, we all, heard the news that Pfizer, the FDA has given emergency use right now for Pfizer for kids 12 to 15. And, we very much hope. We worry about other parts of the world in this case. And we, again, are looking to be as flexible as we can with accepting different vaccines and getting people back. But I just will say what we've already said, that we do want to, build on the lessons learned in this pandemic. And I see the access piece is really, really key. And whether it's, people around the world able to hear from us through some of these seminars, Safwan, that the global centers have really enhanced, I think, during this time, and the pop-up centers, I do think these connections for people all around the world are really amazing. And I think we've seen unprecedented increases in alumni engagement, and we
Yes.
want to continue to build on all of that.
Yeah, thank you, Lisa. And just to add to what you said about the vaccines, we're looking for guidance from the World Health Organization, and I think it's fair to predict, and I'm only predicting, that any vaccines that have been approved by WHO will be accepted. But expect to hear from us over the next few weeks, maybe short weeks. You'll hear back from the university about the vaccine situation. But really, it's been just incredible how much Colombia has been very, very, very focused on addressing all of these questions and preparing ourselves and preparing the campus for a safe return of everyone in September. And as you said, Lisa, at the beginning, hopefully the public health situation will continue to cooperate, because it has improved quite a bit in New York, and we hope that that's the case all over the world. This has been incredible. I mean, I think that you can tell, both of you, how much people want to hear from you, how much they appreciate always hearing from you, and learning about what's going on at the undergraduate education level at the university. And I know that we all look forward to having everyone back on campus, and we'll continue to do everything that we can to support you in the interim and once you're back. Jim and Lisa, my hat is off to you for the incredible work you and your institutions have done during this very, very difficult period. And I know that the period ahead will be difficult in a different way, hopefully, in a much more hopeful way. So thank you so very much for making yourselves available and for sharing as much as you have. And I wish we had another couple of hours. I'm sure we can fill them very, very easily. And so, Lisa, Jim, I turn it over to you if there's anything you want to say.
I'll just start again. Safwan, thank you to you and your team and the global centers, and for all again, the great work that you've been doing. And I just want to say, on a personal note, I'm very excited to welcome back our students, for our students that started last year during the pandemic. As President Bollinger said in commencement, you will always know this time. For those in our class of 2021, this will always be a marked, piece in history. But we very much look forward to seeing you, our students, from the moment you're admitted, and their families, your Colombians for life. And we do know there was a lot missed during this year, and we look forward to again, connecting and having you back on our campus. And I just also want to thank our amazing team, excuse me, at Columbia School of General Studies, who have supported our students in incredible ways, and also to thank the faculty, because it's the faculty that our students come to learn from, to be mentored by, and our faculty have just have stepped up in phenomenal ways.
Thank you, Lisa. Thank you. And Jim, I love every opportunity I have to give you the last word. So,
well, thank you, Safwan. Well, thank you to you again. Thank you to you, Safwan, and to the Global Centers for this opportunity. Thank you to our audience for tuning into this webinar. And thank you to our students and families for your patience, understanding, resilience, persistence, determination through this year. As Lisa said, and we've said many times, we're all looking forward to being back on campus this fall. I have said to students, it's possible for me to be Dean of Columbia College remotely. It's very difficult to be Dean Teeny remotely. And I am desperate to come back and actually be able to talk to students, interact with faculty, in staff, in person, see people. I haven't seen Safwan in months. I haven't seen Lisa in months. We're all looking forward to that and looking forward to recovering that aspect of our lives that we've seen by being deprived of it for so long, how valuable it really is. There's certainly one lesson from this. We have been able to see how valuable the experience we have is by being deprived of it. There's a Joni Mitchell song that has a refrain, you don't know what you've got till it's gone. Well, we've had it gone for a while. Now we really see it. And I think it helps us focus on this. I'm going to be talking to students in particular in the fall about this, to be able to craft a message about what's the value of our residential experience, what's the value of being in person that we see even more starkly now, even more significantly now that we've been deprived of it. And so I'm looking forward to that in the fall. I'm looking forward to seeing all of you in the fall. Thank you all for participating.
You're here. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.